You're listening to Making Money Online with Lisa Johnson, the podcast that tells you what it really takes to build a business and the simple steps to get you there. I'm determined to share with you the reality of easy, simple business marketing tips to make passive income so that you can start making money online.
Hello, everyone. This is not the voice of Lisa Johnson that you are hearing right now. For those of us that haven't met, my name is Dani Wallace and I am the Queen Bee, and I am taking over Lisa's podcast today because I want to, I'm going to have a conversation with one of my dear, dear friends while Lisa isn't in the room, which feels dead naughty. I feel like we're out to play while the teacher is out. Tom Stanhope, are you there?
I am here. Yes.
I feel like naughty, giggly school kids. But for anybody that's listening, my name is Dani Wallace and I am the Queen Bee. I'm an international celebrity public speaking coach, but also I've been mentored by Lisa on and off now for the past 3.5 years, something like that. And when it comes to being mentored by Lisa, I am somebody who has done pretty much to the letter the things that she has told me to do. And me and Tom are somehow inextricably linked. Tom, tell us about you.
Well, hello. My name's Tom Stanhope and I help people grow their businesses with video. So I too have been in Lisa's world for, probably since 2019, but actually I'm only in that world because of you, Dani. I sort of found my way into the Lisa Johnson extended universe through really watching you start your journey with her. So we were in a kind of a personal development group together beforehand, and that's how our paths crossed, first of all. And I think our journey, I think it's fair to say at the time, we were probably both in a place that was, not 100% where we wanted it to be.
Let's say that. We were at the very beginning, I think, of our, I say real business in inverted commas. We already had businesses, right? So I was a singer working full time. I was creating a community. I didn't really know what to do with that community. A little bit of background from where I come from. I've been a performer for the past sort of 20, 25 years. It makes me feel very old when I say that out loud. For about 25 years. And I've moved into corporate, worked in corporate for about 15 years. And that wasn't really fulfilling. Lots and lots of things had happened. And there's lots of conversations that me and Lisa have had where I share kind of my story intrinsically, but I want to kind of talk to you guys today about our business journeys. So the business journey for me was that I was exchanging a lot of time for money in singing. I was a lot of high volume, low value work was the sentence that I was using a lot at the time. So I was gigging a lot and I didn't have a lot of time on my hands and I was absolutely exhausted off of the backside of it. And all the while I'd been going live, playing dressing room roulette. If anybody's a performer out there will know what I mean. That you going to different venues as a performer means that sometimes that you will get given places to get changed, and sometimes those places aren't particularly savory. So I'd chosen to keep myself safe, in parentheses, by popping my phone on my dashboard and putting my makeup on in the car, and inadvertently started to build an audience. I did this really, really regularly, but I had this audience, these people that were watching what I was doing and not really any idea what to do with it. So I'd gone to a personal development event. I'm a huge fan and producer of personal development events now, but back then I wasn't. So I'd gone to one and I met you, and you was in a similar spot, weren't you, Tom?
Man, oh yeah. So at the time we were building a house and I was living in a caravan in a field, and we'd been sort of stuck in that caravan for about 3 years whilst we built a house that we knew in our hearts we didn't want to live in.
Great place to be in.
Man, so we had in that static caravan on the field of my parents' farm, we had myself, my wife, and 2 kids, a dog, and my wife's brother, who was going through a slightly tricky patch at the time, and he was with us. So it was a bit of a squeeze, to be honest. And like you, I was doing the whole kind of frantic thing where you trade time for money. You're kind of constantly going from one job to the next. And actually, we were working for, before we kind of met, we were working for people we didn't actually enjoy working for.
We weren't being
in any way,
discerning about our
shape, or
client base. It was a case of any money was good money. And I know that sounds really uncouth when I say it like that. But when you're in a state of panic and your back's against the wall, you end up saying yes to maybe things you wouldn't normally say yes to. It sounds far more inappropriate than I intended. But you do end up saying yes to people, in my cases, venues, client bases that I didn't necessarily want to be working with. And also, I had this whole skill set of having been in corporate for me, learning development, presentation skills, customer service skills, sales skills, business marketing developments, all of this sort of stuff, this bank of skills that I wasn't actually utilizing. So I wasn't using them to help myself, nor was I helping anybody else. So when you and I met, we were at that kind of crossroads where we knew we had this bank of skills between us. And I think it's beautiful, like in this online space particularly, and I know Lisa's audience will hear me when I say this, is that you will come across people and you will just like the cut of their jib. You'll say, hey, I like you too, let's form an alliance.
And I think that we had a couple of sort of meetings before things really started to kind of, so we met up in Stoke-on-Trent at, the kids had gone to Trenton Monkey Gardens for the day, and we'd met up for a bit of lunch and a bit of plotting.
Yeah.
I remember sort of sitting down, you kind of, you'd basically run off to Malta, hadn't you? and had a sort of a download of information from Lisa, and you came back. I remember just buzzing, and we sat down and you laid out this plan. I was like, that sounds amazing. and you went and you did it. And sort of, and frankly, the rest is like you say, it's just following. So my take on the sort of the whole sort of training thing is that I'm not looking for a coach. I'm looking for a trainer. I go to a when I learned to drive, I didn't go to a driving coach. I didn't sit in the car with somebody and have them saying to me, go on, you can do it. I had somebody who sat with me telling me which levers to pull, which buttons to press, what to do. And that was the point.
It feels right when you're driving.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want somebody going, I really believe in what you're doing. And I think if you just have the right mindset, you're going to be able to drive to the place you need to drive to. It's like, no, I want somebody who's going to come with a plan and tell me how to do it. I'm good at what I do.
Right.
But I need somebody else to tell me, give me the blueprint, but also not to blow smoke up my ass and tell me if you do all this, it's going to be magic, but also to say, you're going to have to do some work here. And I went along with that attitude. In fact, I'd done your course, so 2020, obviously, start of 2020 was a bit tricky.
It was interesting. It was a very interesting time, right?
So I had that thing where I was like, oh God, all my work's disappeared.
Right.
In March. And
just remind us, Tom, what is it that you do? What is it that you create in this world? Because it's amazing what you do.
So video is hugely important for people's businesses and very, very important for those of us who are operating in this online space. It's
now more than ever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've become very familiar with video over the last 2 years. And there's a lot of us who are starting that journey thinking the last thing I want to do is be in front of a camera, an audience telling my story. And you know this because a lot of what you do is around this storytelling. It's this kind of thing where people want to get visible, but they're paralyzed by fear. They're paralyzed. They don't understand the tech. They don't understand the strategy. They don't understand the mindset you need to put in place, and they don't understand the stories they're telling. So my job, I work with people, helping them to do all of that with the end goal of growing their business using video. So whether it's live video or pre-recorded video, using that as a tool to drive business growth. That is all I do. I don't know anything else. Right. I don't know anything. The rest of my life.
That's a big fib. You're one of the most intelligent. Well, you're one of the most intelligent people that I know. And also, you know a thing or two about cocktails. We're going off piece for a second here because one of the things that you do as part of your audience growth and the thing that you remain incredibly consistent at, probably since we had that conversation over, I came back from Malta. Yeah. And I was like, Tom, I've met up with Lisa. We've spent some time together now. What she's done is she shared with me some of the things that I need to do in order to grow my business. It's going to involve teaching. It's going to involve a lot of audience building, a lot of consistency. I know what it is that I was going to do. I created the show at Wise Up, Rise Up show. So at the start of lockdown for me, growing my audience looked like turning up for them every single day. Now, I don't recommend everybody do this because it's a lot. And I am relatively persistent and a little bit stupid. So I was turning up every single day interviewing people. And we was having the conversation like, Tom, what is it that you could do consistently where your audience were going to know and feel safe that you were going to show up for them all the time? And you created Contents and Cocktails.
Well, this is it. So you see, in my head, the timeline for all this is all a bit sort of flexible.
Because of the amount of cocktails that you've drank.
So I look back at this. I was like, I started doing these in 2019. I think it's because of a conversation that we had post-launch when you came down to Plymouth not long after we'd moved, and we did a bit of filming with you, and we talked about all this kind of stuff, and we were talking about what you. Myself and you were all sat together just chatting about the sort of this kind of what live content was I putting out, because I was holding myself back from going live. I was very comfortable with pre-record stuff, but live video I was like, people are going to want to hear from me, and it turns out they are, but as long as I turn up with a drink. So I have a book behind me that is the base of this. This is 100. You've heard this story so many times.
It's my favourite story.
So 100 Cocktails by Bernard is a cocktail book that my grandfather gave me. So this is amazing. So this says Neil Coxon, Madras, 1945. And this is a war economy standard cocktail book. So in order to defeat fascism, the powers that be decided that what the Fleet Air Arm needed was easy access to good cocktails.
That's right.
So hey, look, it worked.
It did. It did.
I'm not saying the war was won because of that, but so this little book has got 100 cocktails in, and we sort of came up with this idea of just turning up once a week and doing a long form show where I made myself a drink, sat down and talked about video content marketing. And I now have done over 100 and something episodes of that. Wow. And I think I was totting up. We have sold an awful lot off the back of that course.
Right.
In fact, possibly looking at the numbers, knocking on the door of 6 figures worth of sales off the back of me turning up once a week for an hour, having a drink. That is my kind of marketing.
It is definitely, and also mine. Even though I'm in the realms of mocktails these days, very sadly. Yeah. But here's the thing: what you created with that consistency and with that audience building, and the brilliant thing about social media, the online space particularly, it is. Nowadays, it's like watching the telly. So if you're turning up at the same time every week and you're creating your audience that way, they know, like, okay, so at 7 o'clock or 7:30 or 8 o'clock on a Thursday evening, Tom's going to be live. And not only is he going to be making a cocktail, and there's your hook, but you've got some brilliant tips and tricks and actually ready access to you. And it's a great thing to do. And what you did then is take that concept, went and learned from, and one to many specifically is what.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Right, this Tom. Is a big piece of the puzzle. Yeah.
And then what did you build off the back of that?
Well, that's a very good question. So nice segue. So all the pieces kind of meshed together really nicely. So as I was doing that, I was like, I did your course, and that gave me a whole heap of clarity around messaging and my story. It took me from thinking I haven't really got any interesting stories to you going, shut the. No.
I find that fascinating. I know. Everybody that I come across. Oh, I haven't got stories that people want to hear, and
apart from these ones.
Yeah,
and this one, and that one there, and that one. Yes,
right.
So, yeah. You pulled that all out of me, which was amazing. And so I came with the back of your course. I was like, okay, where do I go from here? And then Lisa's challenge came up, and I'd been sort of in peripherally in Lisa's world, in as much that I'd seen your journey and thought I should be doing this. I started doing it, but I rapidly found out that I kind of needed a framework to work to. And so the challenge came up one to many. Was it April 2020? And I sat and just did the challenge religiously. I got stuck in the free challenge week. And
this is Race to Recurring Revenue.
Absolutely. So Race to Recurring Revenue, the free challenge, and I drank it up. I got stuck in. I did everything. I did all the thinking work, and I popped out the other end. I was like, shit, I need to do something about this. And I booked I booked straight away, 24-hour bonus. I was one of the billion people who ended up sending Lisa private message, because one of the bonuses the first time round was some one-to-one feedback from Lisa. And I was like, oh my God, I imagine that was like a mammoth mountain to climb for Lisa. But
I imagine so. Absolutely. I remember that. Yeah. And that it was a mammoth task at the time for Lisa to, but one of the great things about her is that when she does give you that time, when you do have that time, either learning from her in an online capacity or in that one-to-one capacity, that it's just gold. You know, if I think about the things that I learned in the time that I was going through one-to-many and understanding, you know, what can I teach? How do I teach it? The tech for me was a scary prospect. Audience building past the sort of generic, organic audience building stuff. Understanding things like email sequences, understanding, you know, all of the tech stuff that goes with it. Having that being made really clear to me suddenly the clarity made it easy. Then all I had to do was implement. And I think that was the real shift, was that if I do these things, because showing up is never a problem for me. I talk about showing up, wising up and rising up, right? And I was learning what I needed to learn, but I needed to show up for it. I needed to do the things. And when Lisa talks about it being like a numbers game, or getting those audience members in and connecting with them, that actually you do that in volume and you've got a great proposition and you're very, very clear on what it is that you're sharing with them and selling to them, that it becomes easy for them to buy. And that's what I found, that actually it was a very natural shift from talking about personal development to talking about small business to then talking about speaking and taking up space specifically. And that was the question that Lisa had asked me, is what can you share? What can you teach? What can you do in a one-to-many capacity? What can you share in a room with people? Because if you can share it in a room with people, you can share it online with people. I'm going to show you how to do it. And that was the real pivotal moment for me, was that I wasn't just bound to creating workshops that I had to bring people to Preston, or I had to travel the UK for. I could do it in a Zoom setting or in a Facebook group setting or all of this sort of stuff. And that was magical because people were already watching me online. Yeah. It became a no-brainer for me. So the very first launch, I'd gone from, when I met Lisa, I talk about, you know, having gone over to see Lisa in Malta, and I went there and there was like 5, 6, 7 figure earners, and I had £300 in my back pocket and not much else. Like I was on a wing and a prayer. The only reason why I got to Malta in the first place is that I had £69 in my bank, and that's how much the return flight was. And that was not taking any baggage or anything like that. It was just a weekend away. I'm sure this is definitely not something Lisa would be able to do now, by the way, just kind of popping out on Facebook. Hey, I'm popping over to Malta. Does anybody want to come? I'm sure she would get absolutely swamped. At the time, there was about 12 of us that went. All of them were multiple 5, 6, 7 figure earners. And I just felt completely out of place. But everybody treated me phenomenally well and was so, so kind. And Lisa asked me the question, what is it that you can share? And helped me map out. It was so kind. It was a kindness that I will never, ever be able to repay, really. She helped me map out a launch, and I went and launched and made £16,000 in my first ever launch. That was a life-changing sum of money for me in my position. And only a few years earlier, I'd been homeless. I'd been, you know, not just on the breadline. I'd been sofa surfing with my 2 kids under the age of 3. Things were in a pretty dire situation for me. So that first launch, garnering that amount of money, I remember my husband at the time was like, Dani, people are never going to buy this. People are never going to do this. And if I'd have listened and stopped there, I wouldn't have created. Now we're looking at turning over £500,000.
Nice.
And that is insanity to consider where you and I both were.
Yeah.
Just a few short years ago.
I think this is it. Well, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, I was in Los Angeles with the mastermind group, Lisa's mastermind. And if you'd have said to me 3 years ago, oh, Tom, you'll be in a position to sort of jet off and enjoy Californian sunshine, talking about doing business development stuff with a group of, like you say, sort of seriously talented people.
Right.
I would have gone, get out of here.
Even I'm shaking my head because I know the conversations that you and I had back in the day when we first started. We went to like a rodeo restaurant. We went to Fazenda's, it was, where they come and cut the meat off, and it was very carnivorous lunch that we had. And I was sharing with you what we were going to do, and we made like a friendship pact at that point in time that, you know, wherever I go, you go, and we're gonna like stick together and stay friends through this. And I think that that's kind of friendship, when you are in the online space or when you're growing, so powerful. And again, one of the beautiful things that Lisa does is create those communities. Like, we were already friends, but then we've both been welcomed into this wider community and wider audience on both of our strengths and both of our merits, not just because Lisa goes, oh, like, this is my mate, be friends with my mate. That's not what she does. Being active in her circle, she attracts some incredible people, and those people tend to be friendly, inclusive, incredible people. And so we've grown our networks in just like that, this most insane way that I know I'm watching you and you're watching me. We're kind of like looking at each other, pinching ourselves, thinking, what happened?
I have grand ambitions, but one of the things that I love more than anything is seeing other people that I really like doing well, and it's just so satisfying to see. And you know, it sounds like such a line, but I do not think that I would be, that without that sort of the runway of the conversations that we had, combined with the sort of the kind of the support and the know-how and all the sort of the training that I've had through Lisa, and the support and the friendship and all that kind of stuff, it's been that combination of one to many and the support of the people I've met that have got me to the point here. Now, still got loads of work to do. It's why I re-upped on the masterminds, because I got to the end of last year, I was like, yeah, that was good. That was really good. And
there's still more to do. It's an ongoing piece of work, right?
Absolutely. So it's changed. You know, it sounds ridiculous and a massive oversight, but it has profoundly changed my life for the better.
I don't think it sounds ridiculous though, because here's the thing.
But people won't believe it. People go, that sounds like bullshit. But it genuinely is not. It is kind of, it's one of those things where you have to kind of, I find myself pinching myself sometimes, thinking, how did this happen? Then I remind myself, oh, it's because of all the really hard work you put in, Tom.
Who'd have thought the harder you work, the luckier you get? Who knew that that's what happened?
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
When you first embarked on participating in one-to-many and you were going through that process, was there any of it that you found particularly difficult?
Yes.
I like how we laugh, because the thing is, we're not, like, the reason why we're having this conversation today is to really have an honest conversation about the journey, right? You create the business that you've got now, me creating the business that I've got now, not just the business, but the lives that we have that are attached to those businesses. Where for me, I'm no longer homeless, which is phenomenal. I've got the house of my dreams now, safety, security, stability. You being able to travel again, because I know that you've got incredibly itchy feet, right? And not because of any obscure reason other than you like to travel.
But it's not a fungal infection. Let's just be right.
Let's just be very clear.
Very clear, please.
Tom's feet are speaking.
Yes.
But you love traveling, and you're able to build that into now your life again. And that wasn't a position that you were in.
No way.
But what about hurdles? Because there are hurdles, there are difficulties, there are, you know, crossroads that we come to when we are on that growth journey and that learning journey. What were they for you?
So, okay, I think this is something which it will resonate with both of us. I have had, you know, like a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space, I have had a late diagnosis of ADHD. And for me, a big part of that is kind of, and I know there'll be people listening going, oh, not another one. Not another one. It's like, but it's something that I've struggled with all my life in some ways, but I've developed coping mechanisms and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things is I'm a great starter, but not a great finisher when it comes to some stuff. And one of the difficulties I found was making sure I stayed motivated. But what I found was really good was actually the internal support within the course. So we had mentorship.
People that had already been through the process, that knew what it was like, that kind of can already foretell where those hurdles are going to be to catch you. So when you've got, so it's not just Lisa heading it up, but it's a real team, like, delivery. It's amazing. Like with, you know, pods and what have you, and you have running buddies and people that, you know, you are in like even smaller communities in, so you don't get lost in the melee of everything that's going on, because there are lots of people that take part in
and I think that's it. You can feel when you do any of these courses. I'm not talking specifically one-to-many, but on a big course, you look at it and think, my God, there's like 1,000+ people in it. You think,
I'm a little fishy in a big pond here. I'm not going to be able to do what I need to do, right?
And it's very easy to look around and go, oh my God, everyone's running much, much faster than I am. And part of the thing that I had to sort of deal with was looking around going, but you know, I'm running my own race. I will celebrate and cheer other people on, but what I should not and cannot be doing is looking over going, why am I not there? Why am I not there? Because if I do that,
judge your chapter 2 on somebody else's chapter 10, right?
Absolutely. So that was certainly a test, because it's, you know, unless you have that sort of understanding of that, I guess the risk, you know, it's easy to get sort of not off put, but sort of certainly a little disheartened by it sometimes. So you have to have that understanding going into this, or indeed any kind of endeavor like this. Right. You are running your own race as far as OTM goes. One-to-many is about leveling yourself up, not kind of measuring yourself against everybody else who's different. So that's a huge, and I would say anybody who's listening to this who is thinking about doing one-to-many is like, you've got to hold that in your heart as you go through, because there are going to be people who go in and just go, right, I'm implementing. And they go, right. What?
And they might have spent, so like me, the things happen very, very quickly for me. Yeah. And the reason things happen very, very quickly for me is I'd spent 7 years audience building. Yeah. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I'm a massive oversharer and I like going live. I'm a little bit strange like that. But I'd spent the last 7 years audience building.
Yeah.
So for me, if I'd have implemented even more, I'd have done even better. But for some people that I was around, that was quite intimidating.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you have people that come in and they steady away. And I think everyone's got to run their own race. So some people will, you know, embark upon these sorts of endeavors and they will go like the clappers, you know, they might be one of the crazy ones, and that's okay. And it's equally okay for you to take this learning and implement it in your own time so that you can do it well. And I think in particular this instance, done is better than perfect, but actually allowing yourself the scope that you need to be able to do the things that you need to do and do all of them. That's the equation. That's what makes it work, is that yes, you've lots of things to think about all of a sudden, but actually allowing yourself and taking the time to implement is important. Yeah. So if you say, right, okay, I'm going to do something like one-to-many, and then next week, I'm going to do a launch and it's going to turn me over multiple 5 figures. And yes, chances are that may not happen because you've not given yourself enough time to do the things that you need to do in order to create the things that you need to create in order to do those things. So I think being very, very realistic is really important. But similarly, because of the amount that you get, because of the knowledge that you get, because of the learning that is available to you, because of the other people that are there that are really setting the bar with you and for you as well, there's nothing to stop you from running as fast as you like. And I think that's the really cool thing. I love it. It's like watching, I'm so sorry if anybody doesn't like horse racing, but it's like watching like the Grand National and seeing like people legging it and just absolutely going for it and going like the clappers. And, you know, you'll see people running in front of the other, but I find that joyful and fascinating and really interesting. And I like being a runner.
What was the hardest part that you found? What was the kind of the bit that sort of you got to and was like, oh man, this is tough?
Validity. So trusting that I knew enough to be able to give value to that amount of people. So in order to create a multiple 5-figure or a 6-figure launch, I would have to provide value to X amount of people. And even though, so the bit of advice for anybody that feels like this, by the way, is that if you have something that you can share with the world, it's not new. You're new in the space. So I was new in the online space. I was new in Lisa's audience. I was new in a lot of other people's audiences. But actually, I've got 25 years experience. I've got another 15 years experience in a training capacity. I am very, 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 very good and experienced and valid in what I do. Just because this room of new people don't know me, that doesn't make me invalid. So I think that trusting my skills and my abilities was probably one of the biggest hurdles to get through. Who am I to be teaching this? Who am I to be taking up space in the world as public speaking expert? And that's exactly what I am. I'm an expert. But it's so hard in the first instance to articulate that for yourself. And that's what I think a lot of people struggle with right at the very beginning, especially if they're going through Race to Recurring Revenue and they're going through the free challenge. And, you know, Lisa's asking people to consider, what could you do? Well, I could do anything. I could teach crocheting if I wanted to, but am I valid in teaching crocheting? Well, probably not. So where are my skill sets? So trusting myself to be able to say to the world, hey, I'm going to take up space here, was the first hurdle. The second hurdle was the tech. And I am very, 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 very much an advocate. If you can, get somebody in for the bits that you find very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And so I had, right at the very beginning, like you and I worked together like this, right? So from you and me, from a like a mindset point of view, but you from a video point of view, you helped me create some of my very first videos. You filmed my first events. Like we shared our skills and expertise together. So, you know, I wasn't in a position, and nor was you right in the very beginning, to be investing huge amounts of money. But then when we started to, therein led the magic.
Yeah.
It was actually when we started to invest in ourselves that we really started to grow, because we put some skin in the game. We started playing the game, right?
God, yeah. I mean, I mean, if the last 2 years has taught me anything, it is that you don't level up by being cheap.
Controversial but true. I
know, and I would have thought that as a statement.
Yeah, I know. Same.
And I don't mean like you've got to spend tens of thousands of pounds.
Nope.
You know, you get to. But what I mean is, part of me, when I was looking to press the buy button on One to Many the first time, I was thinking, part of me was like, I could work this out myself.
Right.
I could work this out myself.
Yeah,
but then I thought, you won't though, will you, Tom?
Yeah.
You'll say you're going to.
You would have done it already, Tom.
Exactly. You'll say you're going to. And yeah, you could reverse engineer all of this yourself if you know, you're not a stupid guy. But you know what? You're quite a lazy guy.
You're not lazy.
You're quite a lazy man who likes a shortcut. This, Tom, is a shortcut. You get to pay somebody some money and they're going to show you exactly what you do. All you have to do is follow the plan. And I was like, yeah, I'm down with that. But that was it. The investment was made. I was able to spread. So on the first one, I was able to spread the payment, and that was great. And for me, that was a really, it made sense. I did it. I got the results. I was slower because, you know, I was learning an awful lot of stuff. And like you were saying, I was building an audience essentially from scratch.
From nothing. You didn't have like that kind of online presence. Like even just in Preston alone, I was kind of famous in my own front room.
Yes.
So there was a little bit of that going on. But yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And now your investments are like, each time you level up, each time you garner those returns on those investments when you implement the things that you've said that you were going to implement. And that was another scary thing at the beginning.
Yeah. It's those big level ups. I mean, I look at LA and I appear to have invested an awful lot in food and cocktails. Jesus. Turns out this will be a shocker. Beverly Hills isn't the cheapest place to visit.
Can you imagine?
I knew it.
And they also don't have batteries readily available.
No, so yeah, I think the sort of, in terms of the what was hard and what was easy question, I think it's a really important one that people need to ask themselves. I think, you know, if you can go into this thing identifying potential weaknesses or potential kind of areas where you're gonna sort of need a little bit of extra support, then either you ask your kind of, you know, your network, can you help me? Or you find somebody else who you can bring in, or frankly, you just kind of go out and put the hours in. I mean, at the moment, I'm in the process of massively leveling up my email marketing game. Yeah. I'm sort of going through that process because it's something that I've been really terrible at, actually. And you know, it's being honest with yourself, I think, at the start of these processes and going, where are my weaknesses and how do I mitigate for them?
Yeah. And it's even understanding that. And that's one of the great things again about one-to-many is understanding. I didn't know that I needed an email list. I didn't know that I needed to email market. I didn't know that I needed a funnel. I didn't know that I needed these things. Like, until you start to allow yourself into these worlds, into this idea of learning, into understanding what does online marketing look like, what does course creation look like, what does it mean to be able to sell those things, then you can start to see the gaps. You can start to see the things that you need to learn and then the things that you need to implement. So for me, how did my business change? I got more processes in place that I am then able to rinse and repeat and then scale and grow. And I think that was the important thing, that the exchange of time for money in the first instance was real. And I've now been able to, considerably helped by the kicking out of the table leg that was COVID. I wasn't able to rely on singing anymore. So I had to implement the things that I'd learned with Lisa much more quickly than I had done. But actually, there's a real blessing in disguise, because now, guess what? If we go back to what we said before, I get to choose the clients that I work with. I get to choose the gigs that I want to do now, if I even want to gig at all. I don't maybe want to sing my shoulda, coulda, wouldas in a social club on a Sunday night anymore. I don't want to do that. So I get to choose. And I think that the way that my life and my business has changed is I have more choice now than I have ever had in my life. Is it hard work? Yes, it is. Yeah. Is it absolutely worth it? 100 times over. Would you agree?
100%. This is it. Every time I find myself having a wobble, I go, well, do you want to be back where you were doing the things you were doing? It's like, never in a million years. It was bloody horrible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The world that's opened up and the life that's opened up, the people I've met, the time I'm getting to spend with family, the sort of the journey that I'm on has been incredibly fruitful. And all I want is an Italian castle.
Just an Italian castle.
That's all I want, Dani.
Very simple requirements.
I feel like I'm on the road there. I'm on the road to it. I can see it. It's on the hill in the distance.
Well, make sure that you save some of the West Wing for your old pal to come and stay over.
Anytime.
Beautiful Italian food in your Italian castle. Tom, it has been so lovely to catch up with you and to share your journey and share my journey as well. And I hope for all of you that are listening out there, you've enjoyed our conversation today. We'll be welcoming Lisa, obviously, back to her own podcast in the next episode. And hopefully we'll see you soon. But you can find me across the socials at the Queen Bee. Dani, Tom, where can we find you?
Well, I'd love anybody who's kind of on their video journey, starting their video journey, to come and join me in my free Facebook group, Grow Your Business with Video with Tom Stanhope.
See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Making Money Online with Lisa Johnson. If you'd like to get hold of my guide to launching, go to lisajohnson.com/launch and let's get you making money online.